Hi everybody, it's meteorologist Joe Cioffi. It's Friday night and another week has come to an end. The 10th of August, 2018. Good to see everybody on board. Johnny Quest was the first one on board tonight. Anthony Orr was second and Dio Nankumar was third. And Greenfire 919 was fourth. The exacta, no, sorry about that. I always go into horse racing mode, especially in during when they're racing up at Saratoga, which I haven't been able to get to. Okay, a lot of stuff going on going into the weekend. We've got we still have Hurricane Hector, and you can see Hector right there. I got the window up. Also, we're going to get to that in a second. I just want to remind you too, up here at the top, the Joe and Joe weather show tonight, which will be coming up at roughly 9. We're going to maybe try to do it a little earlier tonight. So figure sometime between 8:30 and 9 Eastern time. But that's always time approximate. So bear that in mind. And Joe's going to take a little break next week. So I'll be soloing. So we'll have to. The show's going to take a bit of a hiatus. For next week anyway. And let me just get through let's do this disclaimers at the top tonight. First off, remember that these radars are dated. Of course, if you're watching this on a replay later tonight, we are right now at 7:06 Eastern time on Friday. So if there's rough weather going on in your area, you would certainly want to check that out by going to your local National Weather Service forecast office page. You can access that by going to weather.gov. Also, with regards to tropical storms and hurricanes, not that any of them are threatening, but always remember that your best source is the National Hurricane Center at nhc.noaa.gov. That is your go-to page when, if and when a tropical storm or hurricane threatens. And of course, consult your local government officials regarding what you should or shouldn't do. And there are two links on the descriptor to this video, one to Amazon and one to eBay. So if you shop on Amazon, or if you shop on Amazon and use eBay so you can get extra cash back, those are affiliate programs that I belong to. There are means for this channel to earn a little bit of coin as we link to those websites. So we appreciate it that those of you who have used those sites to do your shopping, thank you very, very much. Now, let's start off with Hurricane Hector. One of the things I noticed over the last number of days is the Hurricane Center in Miami has been fighting a very frustrating game with Hector. It is well away from the Hawaiian Islands now, still kicking up surf, of course, but they've been forecasting this thing to weaken, and it just absolutely refuses to do that. It is continuing to move along. It's on a west-northwest course. It's now up to about 18 north, and the longitude is roughly at about 100 and almost 168 degrees west. The system actually has a very good presentation on the radar, and the top winds. Let me double check on the advisory. The winds actually were sent up. It is now a Category 4 hurricane again. Top winds are 140 miles an hour. And with respect to the course of this, we are going to see Hector move along to the west-northwest, or possibly make more of a turn toward the northwest, waiting for shear conditions and cooler ocean waters, which eventually it will run into once it starts getting closer to 20 and 25 degrees north. It is forecast to weaken. It is forecast across the international date line, and then eventually will probably get absorbed by a deep trough that'll form out in the Pacific, and that'll be that. But it doesn't. As it's making this turn, it would seem to make it less likely that this thing is going to wind up going out to all the way across the tropical Pacific. But it certainly has been a fascinating storm, passing south of Hawaii and as a major hurricane, and now remains a major hurricane and has strengthened back to a Category 4. Okay, the other issue that we have is what's going to be going on in the east, and you can see on the radar tonight we have downpours and heavy thunderstorms in parts of western Pennsylvania and right along the Maryland-Pennsylvania border. Also, some storms have flared up and back into southeastern Ohio, and we also have showers and storms going on across much of the Gulf states, from East Texas across Louisiana, southern Mississippi, southern Alabama, into southwest Georgia. And there's actually a concentration of some strong storms this evening going on in parts of southeastern Florida. Last 3 days, the thunderstorms in Florida have been in 3 different places. One on the 2 days ago on the southwest coast, in and around Naples and Port Charlotte. Yesterday they were up more north of Daytona, south of Jacksonville, and today it looks like they're from Palm Beach south toward Miami to the Upper Keys. So interesting that they keep shifting around. Also getting some activity with showers and thunderstorms in parts of West Texas and through the southern and central plains, and in the southwest some monsoon activity going on, and even a couple of light rain showers in inland areas of Southern California. The Northwest remains bone dry, and it's very hot up in the Northwest. Now, in the East, we have flash flood watches that have now been posted for much of Massachusetts except the East, also for Connecticut and parts of Rhode Island, Long Island, New York City, northeastern New Jersey, and the lower and middle Hudson Valley, south of Albany. I am going to suspect that this area is going to get expanded some, at least into the northern half of New Jersey and maybe eastern Pennsylvania. One of the struggles, the tough thing in a forecast like this in the summertime is that models have a really difficult time trying to come to some sort of consensus when it comes to where these downpours and thunderstorms are going to be. Some of them have a burst developing tomorrow morning, and then others don't. Others have it more late in the day. Some have it both, early and late in the day. Some have them near the coast. Some have them inland. So I think the best approach when you have a situation like this where they're all over the place, and given the convective nature of what we're dealing with here, and we are in August now, and obviously this is not an overrunning situation where it's a little bit easier. You're going to have, there's a convective nature here to deal with, and that means that you're going to have a huge variation in terms of rainfall. These are the current temperatures right now, which are generally in the upper 70s and lower 80s. The dew points have come up. I want to also swing out to the northwest because it's hot out there, and we are seeing temperatures. The heat has shifted northward up toward the border states near the Canadian border, and as we look at some of these numbers in Montana, especially in western Montana, where temperatures are between 100 and 105, this is where we have the excessive heat warnings that are up, along with red flag warnings and all sorts of other advisories, heat advisories, etc., etc., etc. And in the northwest, inland of the coast, it's not too bad around Seattle, where it's 82 and Olympia is 75. But once you go far inland and head toward the eastern parts of the states of Washington and Oregon, then you start running into these temperatures that are well over 100 degrees, between 100 and 105. And then as we move down into California, we're seeing temperatures that are a bit more reasonable than they have been lately. Whoops, that wasn't supposed to happen. But let me just move the maps down. So where you see the temperatures that are over 100 inland is where you would normally see it over 100 this time of year anyhow, but at least they're not way up there at 115, and the temperatures near the coast are a bit lower, although they have heat advisories up in and around LA with temperatures up into the 90s. And we have some flash flood watches up for parts of Arizona in and around Phoenix, much of the southwestern corner of the state under a flash flood watch. So fairly busy when we look at where we're going with all of this over the next couple of days. The thing that comes front and center is this next trough. And let me show you how we get to this. This is the third trough in the east in the last 3 weeks. And each one has been a bit different in terms of character. We've had one that's set up right along 85 degrees west. We had the second one, which was that initially set itself up out near 90 west, right along the Mississippi River. And then this one, which seems to be the furthest east of them all, and that is going to set up right along 80 west. And of course, you know, the positions of these troughs always, you know, is going to be a big factor in where the heaviest thunderstorms and where the heaviest rains occur. Now, the origins here are actually from a shortwave that is in southeastern Canada. And that shortwave basically stretches like a piece of taffy there, and then the bottom part of the trough cuts off, and you see it right here. This is Monday morning. You've got a 2-contour cutoff low sitting in southeast Ohio. The trough axis is right along 80 west. So east of there, you're talking about south-southwest to southerly winds from Virginia northward. And you've got the upper high that is sitting off the coast. So I can illustrate it a bit better. I'll bring the paint box up here. And this way you can see where the trough, you know, where the trough axis is. But here we have our upper trough. Here's our cutoff low. And you've got a north-south trough that extends south from there. We've got our, let me put the L here for you. So there's your upper low. And of course, you know, to the east of that, you've got these, you know, southerly winds counterclockwise around lows. You've got, you know, northerly winds behind it, the upper low at least. So the upper high, which is offshore, you've got this, you wind up with this moisture feed that comes up the east coast around the upper low. And the problem here is that it's separated from the main jet stream. Here's the base of the main jet, which runs across the northern plains and through southern Canada. So there really isn't a mechanism to kick this thing out in a hurry. There is another upper low here to the west, you know, that's sitting up in northern Texas. This is going to be responsible for producing some big rains in this particular area here over the weekend. But eventually, as this kind of migrates eastward, you're going to start to kick this along, and there'll be another shortwave coming down out of Canada to also move it along. And by the way, in the west, you notice we had a big upper high here. That is gone. We do have a ridge right in there, but it's nowhere near as strong as what it was. So it's actually taken the heat, the extreme heat, out of the southwest and southern California, and instead, you know, your extreme heat is going to be occurring right at the top of the ridge, which is across Oregon. I probably should have drawn it further north, so obviously, you know, we're talking about hot temperatures right in that area that I outlined in red. So this is how, you know, the upper air is playing out, and going forward, eventually that upper low in the east gets kicked out. But this is Wednesday morning, so we're talking starting tomorrow. Here we are on Saturday morning. It takes till Wednesday to get that upper low right over New York City. And this is actually Wednesday afternoon at 2 p.m. and then moves out. Now, I'm going to lay a bet here that in terms of downpours, the day I'm probably worried most about in terms of what could be in volume of rain, it's going to be Monday and Tuesday with the upper low so close, the very cold upper atmosphere here, a lot of instability. I'll have to look at a few other parameters, but I think you could wind up with some pretty hefty downpours out of this across from northeastern Virginia on up into southern New England. So that's why I'm kind of thinking that we're going to see these flash flood watches expanded a bit as we go through the weekend and into next week. The tough part in this forecast, again, as I said earlier, is the convective nature of it. Notice the second upper low behind it opens up, and that helps to finally kick this out of here. And you also have another system that comes down in the north late next week, and that tries to push some sort of cold front through here at the end of next week. probably going to mean chance for the chance for downpours continuing every day. Although I think after Wednesday, to be safe, they'll start to be minimized a bit. And then we have a strong trough that the model picks up on again, coming into the east for the week of August 20th, Monday, August 20th. So that whole week. This should bring a fairly decent shot of drier air and cooler air. The trough ultimately weakens and lifts out, and then we start the process all over again. So it's a pretty interesting pattern going forward, I think. We can even look at the dew points. That's become the new go-to map that a lot of you want to see. I'm sorry, folks. I just realized I didn't even bring the right map up. Let me come back. I apologize. This is what happens sometimes when I'm in a hurry. Not that I'm that much in a hurry, but let me just recenter all this. All right, let's bring that up. So, just to recap again, my apologies. Let me come back to this upper air. So there's our upper low, and I'm going to just go back. So this is Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It takes 4 days for it to finally reach the coastline, and then the system that's to the west opens up and kicks it along. And here's what happens after we get maybe another cold front at the end of the week. As I said, the chance for downpours every day. Then you start to get this big trough that the model suddenly wants to telegraph into the east. Let's see if it's still there on subsequent runs. It was there, then it was gone, now it's back again. This at least would try to bring in a decent shot of dry air into the east for a couple of days on the week of August 20th, 21st. So we'll put the dew points up. And now I can see that you can see all this, which is good. And there's your date. Now, let me get a better region. So we'll go tight here on the east. In the meantime, by the way, just to back up, we're back to dew points in the upper 60s and low 70s over the weekend, and then into the 70s as we go through the week. Tuesday and Wednesday, not too bad, upper 60s, low 70s though, go Thursday and Friday and into next weekend. And then as that system, that deeper trough comes into the Great Lakes here on the week of the 20th, then you start to push in some dew points that at least get down into the 50s, which would be really nice. They may not last very long, but at least it'll be some real relief. We had some minimal relief with regards to the dew points yesterday. It did feel a bit better, but I can already feel it worse outside as the humidity has come up. Now, back to the rains, and let's look at. We're going to look at a couple of different maps here with the GFS, and this is probably a good time to mention too. These maps are courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com. Thank you very much for the use. They are tremendous, and you can all go to that website. It's absolutely free, and there's so much there, and it's a great site for hurricanes. And over the weekend, by the way, I'm going to try and get this instructional video on about some of the better websites that you can use. Here's the rainfall forecast map for the next 6 days. So actually, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, the next 5 days. The rainfalls, the new run, the white area is all 2 inches or more. The darker purples are 3 and 4 inches. It's fairly extensive across the southern New England, across through New Jersey, Pennsylvania, down into parts of West Virginia, Western Virginia. But I would caution you here because of the fact that the models don't always do well with this sort of stuff. And to show you the differences, I'm going to back to 84 hours because this way it'll be even with the NAM. Here's how the GFS sees the rainfall. And for a fairly large portion, it's going to wind up with at least an inch or two of rain, and some areas are going to get more. When you look at the NAM, it has a different picture in terms of the rain for the next 5 days. And this is, again, only through 84 hours, so we don't have Tuesday in the mix here. But you can see that the area of 2 inches plus, much less. In fact, even the area of an inch plus through 84 hours is much less than the GFS. So you struggle as a forecaster looking at this stuff because you're trying to find some sort of consensus where you could forecast the rain. This is not an overrunning event, unfortunately. So you wind up, you're sitting here and guessing. And you're not only guessing on the rain amounts, but you're also guessing on timing and where is this all going to be, because every model has a different picture of what's going to happen. So here's the NAM, this NAM 2021 to 223. So we're coming up on 8 o'clock. So this is what the NAM shows for 8 o'clock tonight in terms of a radar presentation. Here's the radar in the east right now. And I'll make it a little smaller so it matches. You can match it up a bit better visually. Up. That wasn't supposed to happen. Okay, so there's your radar. And you can see the range that are in that it's showing, and we can assume that 30 minutes from now it'll be fairly close to this. So there's your radar, and here's the NAM's picture. So it looks like the NAM has somewhat of the right idea. Perhaps it's a bit underdone. So let's carry that along in our minds. And as we go through the night, it does actually start to flare up some downpours during the early morning hours in and around New York City and southern New Jersey. And this is a bit of a change. By tomorrow morning, it's got downpours in all of New Jersey, Long Island, and the lower Hudson Valley and southwest Connecticut. Then that batch goes out, and you notice how quickly a second batch flares up by early afternoon in eastern Pennsylvania, back over all of New Jersey. And then once we get past sunset, they sort of die down. And then Sunday, they kind of form in a different way, where they pop up, at least according to the NAM, only in central PA, and the bulk of the rain is down in Virginia and in coastal North Carolina. And then Monday, it doesn't, it develops a few downpours, but it has a real tough time as to where this is all going to be. And these models, by the way, have not been good performers through all of this. The GFS, and I got to be a little careful here, because the GFS here, we're talking, the green areas are not what the radar looks like, but what the rainfall amounts are going to be. And as we go through tonight, it kind of matches up with the NAM to some extent. Perhaps the GFS shows a bit more, especially Saturday night, overnight Saturday night into Sunday morning, and then it does really blow them up much more than the GFS, than the NAM did across Pennsylvania and western New Jersey and inland from the coast. This would suggest, by the way, that coastal areas, Long Island and New Jersey, could be mostly dry on Sunday. We'll see. And then this is the day I'm a little more concerned about, and that's Monday, when the upper low begins to really pivot closer to the coast. That you could have a fairly extensive area of some heavy rains. The GFS in the darker greens here showing 2 to 2.5 inch rain amounts being generated. And then Tuesday, the same, because the upper low is still in play. And then, out it goes after that. And then we have a front at the end of the week with some showers and storms. And then we wait for yet another front early next week that brings in, hopefully, that shot of slightly drier air. This time of year is fun. And I don't necessarily mean that in a good way. And especially with the summer weekends now winding down to a precious few, you would like the weather on the weekends to be decent, and it may not necessarily be. Now, with respect to the Weather Prediction Center, because I like to look at their forecast map, if only because they, I think, have done a fairly good job in a broad sense of picking out, showing the areas of rain and the rain amounts. I think they've been pretty good at it. And I'll bring up their map for the next 7 days. and it's a very bullish rain map in the east, particularly across Pennsylvania, most of New Jersey, southern New England, the Hudson Valley, in that red area, which on the scale is at least 3 inches and up to 5 inches in this zone. Kind of tails off a bit as you go to the south. Lesser amounts across Virginia and West Virginia on the order of 1 inch to 1.5 inches. And then you can see that other big area in West Central Texas, on up through central Oklahoma, down into southeastern Kansas, and through Missouri. Notice the west, dry for the most part. Monsoon rains in the southwest and up into the central Rockies, which we would expect. But all the action appears to be in the east, and also in the plains, in the southern plains, and back through central Texas. Again, that's with that second cutoff low that is out there. Now, I want to come back to the tropics, because we do have something that the Hurricane Center is watching, if only ever so carefully, and that is some wave action. We've noticed waves coming off the African coast, and we've been pointing out how anemic a lot of that stuff has looked lately. It looks as if perhaps they've, one of them at least, seems to be trying to flare up just a little bit in the central Atlantic. Let's see if it holds together during the overnight. It might not. But the Hurricane Center is actually talking about this and rating the 20% chance of this developing over the next 5 days, and even pointing out that conditions as we go further to the west may become a bit more conducive. I have not had time to look at the upper air to see if the wind shear conditions are forecast to relax across the Caribbean or in the area that's east of the Leeward Islands, but we'll see. Right now, nothing is pending. We also, it looks like there's another strong wave coming in, coming off the African coast and moving westward. So perhaps we're getting to where the tropics are going to be getting a bit busier. We can look at, and I'm looking at this with you for the first time, so let's see if it does anything. Does the GFS spin up any lows in the tropical Atlantic? Well, you can see it actually does print out a surface low with a little closed isobar in that tropical wave that we were just showing you. But does it do anything with it is the question. And it kind of holds it together, and it's still there into early next week. You really can follow, if you follow the darker green, you can sort of follow the wave along, but it really doesn't do very much with it, nor does it seem to do much with the wave behind it. Then as we move out, now we're out past 810. Now this is all strictly for laughs, of course, but it really doesn't seem to be doing much of anything with respect to the tropics. There is one other thing. I noticed somebody pointed this out. You know, there's this new parallel. This is the FV3 GFS. I don't know if this is a parallel version of the GFS, and eventually it's going to get upgraded. But they did point out on an earlier run. Let me see if I can find it. There was an earlier run of this. This does not run all the time, so it's kind of hard. I guess maybe I misread or mistake. They were talking about this particular model showing some kind of wrapped up animal over the Cape Verde Islands and just sitting it there for 10 days, which we know is just nonsense. I'm just taking one more check to see if this was it. And I guess this one wasn't it either. So, all right, never mind about that. I was hopefully that I could at least show you an example of how, you know, models sometimes can hiccup and show you things that are just not real. But I guess that was a bit of a fail. So you get the idea here, folks. The rain is going to be front and center this weekend in the Northeast and in the parts of the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic states. And at least the tropics remain quiet, which is good. Don't want, with the trough in the east, this is where you don't really want a tropical storm lining up somewhere, and thankfully we do not have that at the moment. Scott Briller, thank you very much. Will Wildwood escape the heavy rain this weekend? Well, I think tomorrow probably not. But I got to tell you that my confidence level on that is not all that high, if only because I could show you a handful of models have all the rain north of Route 195 in New Jersey and keep south of 195 mostly dry. I kind of buy the idea that maybe not much happens for the first part of the day tomorrow, and more so in the second. I also think that you could argue that Sunday may wind up being a better day for coastal New Jersey and for Long Island, where the downpours seem to want to form more in inland areas. So that's something I think I think was clear on some of the afternoon model runs. It may or may not hold, and it may change on the very next run. I think you have to approach the weather anywhere you are in the northeastern mid-Atlantic states this weekend, that there will be the threat for downpours and thunderstorms pretty much anywhere at any time. The best chances will probably be during the afternoon and evening, with a little bit of daytime heating thrown in. You get these things to flare up, but saw a couple of models actually showing some stuff hanging around during the overnight. When you're deep in a tropical air mass, oftentimes that happens. You're not subject to the whims of the daytime heating, and then once the heating comes off, the storms disappear. There's usually so much moisture in the air and so much instability that you wind up with these nighttime storms. So I can't really rule out the possibility that we could see stuff hanging around at night. Let's see. Israel says, crazy story. Brother was on vacation in the Southwest, Nevada and California, was showing me some of the pictures. One of the pictures he showed, a thermometer showing 112. I also, one of my former colleagues, a photographer that I worked with at WPIX, Jonathan Fine, yesterday took a picture of a tornado in New Mexico, and I posted it on my Facebook page. You can take a look at it. It's just it's a fantastic shot, with overlaid on the desert with the mountains in the background. It was quite a shot. Anthony Orr, our resident statistician, points out that Hurricane Hector has now generated the most accumulated cyclone energy by a hurricane in the Northeast Pacific, out to 180 degrees, since Hurricane Dora in 1999. That's incredible. Timothy Veltman, 2 trees hit by lightning earlier this week in Latham, which, by the way, is where I usually get a hotel room when I come up to Saratoga to try to save a little bit of money. One streaked on 2 sides. The other was huge, but obliterated an 80-foot tall locust tree, reduced to 30-foot shards. Amazing. And we had folks struck by lightning here from the thunderstorms of a couple of days ago. That round of very, very strong thunderstorms that moved through. And Mirtha Gunter, beautiful day, little rain off and on, but other than that, beautiful. That is always a good way to look at it. And Qualtis Lawrence, $5 to win on that opening bet finish that I announced. And Johnny Quest, Anthony Orr, Dio, and Greenfield complete the superfecta. Exactly. Charles Baker from southeastern Pennsylvania, welcome to you. I always try with the disclaimers, Mr. Lawrence. Thank you for being here, Brian Patterson. Good evening to you, Scott Olson. When do I think a disturbance will develop? Weather Hub TV. Good question. The Atlantic just does not seem to want to get revved up. I think we have to, as I said, I've been saying the last couple of days, let's look for the Pacific to show a decrease in activity. I think once we see that, that'll be the tip-off that the Atlantic may start to rev up and produce a storm or two. You know, the other thing that might happen, and I wouldn't rule this out, that you might wind up with a big burst. I'm trying to remember, there was a hurricane season, maybe it was back in the early 2000s, that was very quiet, and then it suddenly just exploded in activity. Toward the end of August through the middle part of September, there was a succession of about 6 or 7 storms almost in a row. So don't rule that out, that you could have the Atlantic suddenly fire up in a big way. But right now, we other than those waves that I showed you, we don't have anything on the table. Okay, let's see. I'm just trying to make sure. Good evening to Joyce Mack and Earl Warren. Nice to see you here, Earl. Green Fire 919. The NAM is more accurate. The NAM 12 kilometer Green Fire has actually done okay. Hasn't been perfect, but it's done okay. The NAM 3 has been hit or miss. The HRRR, I think, has gone back to its reputation for being horrible. You know, those models and a bunch of the other short-range models, all of them having downpours in different places. Earl Warren, smoke from the Western Fire is making it all the way to the East Coast. Map showed some smoke near the surface, even in New England. Whoa, that is amazing. I haven't really been paying too much attention to that part of the equation. And until that Saharan dust stops coming off Africa, it's going to be real difficult to get anything fired up in the tropical Atlantic. David Schwartz, I agree. That's why I think you may have these waves not do very much until they get west of 50 west, and then maybe at that point they'll fire up a bit. The ocean water temperatures, as we saw yesterday, are certainly supportive of water for tropical storm development. 28 degrees C water is now east of 50 degrees west, if I remember from what I saw on the water temperature map yesterday. Let's see. What model on tropical tidbits is the RAP? I don't believe he has the RAP model, the RAP. The HRRR is there. You could, if you Google the RAP model, you can. There was a point where there was the RAP and there was the HRRR, and I'm not sure whether they just kind of went with the whole HRRR. I think they're both still there. They're both still there. But Google it, folks, and you can pull up the RAP, and the RAP does have a run that goes out to 36 hours. The HRRR at 0Z, 6Z, 12Z, and 18Z runs out to 36 hours. Delvin, good to see you. You're just to the east of that flash flood watch that is up for much of Massachusetts, except for the coastal counties, it seems. But I think you're going to get, you're going to get some downpours to deal with over the weekend. And by the way, speaking of the weekend, I will be live streaming on Saturday and on Sunday. I'm going to Sunday, I'm definitely going to live stream early in the day. I will be working at WPIX TV Sunday afternoon and evening. Oh, wait a minute. I just realized I may not be live streaming Sunday at all because I'm going to go see my grandson before I go to work. So I may not live stream Sunday, but let's see what happens. I will live stream tomorrow in the morning, and if conditions warrant, if we wind up with some really hefty downpours tomorrow afternoon and evening, I'll throw in another live stream during the evening hours. And again, a reminder, we've got the Joe and Joe Weather Show coming up tonight. Figure sometime between 8:30. We're going to try and do it a bit earlier tonight because of the fact that it's a Friday and you folks want to get going, you're going out for the night, or perhaps you're getting away for the weekend. So we'll try and do the Joe and Joe Show a little earlier. Israel live stream tomorrow night at 9:30. We'll see how it goes. You guys know me by now. I know sometimes I try to stick to what I say, and then things happen that wind up throwing me off. Also, I have sent out some invites. I have sent out some invites for guests, and I won't say who, but and also Joe Rayo has done the same, the Joe Rayo has done the same. So hopefully we can get some guests on here in the coming weeks. One of the things I'm trying to do is sort of save my firepower. I'd like to have the guest on when there's something really really important to talk about. So, but I am working on it. I did see, what was that question? The Abaddon. The HRRR model stands for High Resolution Rapid Refresh. Okay? And you can check them. There are a lot of sites that have the HRRR, including tropicaltidbits.com. But there are some other sites and a couple of National Weather Service sites that have all sorts of variations. There's one of the sites that I've used, and I'll try to get this. I have to dig it up on my bookmarks, and I don't remember it off the top of my head. But you can actually take the HRRR and look at all sorts of different things, all sorts of different levels. The HRRR's idea of what the composite radar is going to look like, precip hour by hour, snow amounts hour by hour when snow is relevant. So that site is on there. When we get to an opportunity where it might be a valuable tool, I'll bring it up. And we'll use them. I don't think the models take into account the mountains, and the mountains can have quite an effect on the weather. Johnny Quest, that's absolutely correct. I was actually having that conversation with Addison Green, my colleague here. That's why that WPC QPF forecast, the quantitative precipitation forecast map that I showed you, that 7-day forecast map, if you go to the Weather Prediction Center's website and pull up the QPF, those maps that they draw take into account the topography of a given area, and they oftentimes will talk about it in their discussions. So when you pull up those maps, it's a very good idea to read their discussions, because they will address the impacts of topography on rainfall amounts. You know, they might have a general area of, say, 3 to 5 inches, but they'll make a notation that because of topography, there might be some local amounts up to a foot in some places. So it's important that you look at the map, but also read the discussion. It might be a bit technical, but I think depending on who writes it, oftentimes you can kind of read around it. And certainly the lines, the parts of it that tell you, that describe where the rainfall amounts are going to be, are certainly easy enough to digest. Sometimes they get too technical, even for those of us that deal with this stuff on a day-to-day basis, and they'll pull up all these like odd technical terms that it's like, okay, what does that mean? It's a little bit above my pay grade. I'm very envious of the young folks these days, because they have their heads into so much more than we older guys. On the other hand, they are green when it comes to the practical experience day to day. So that's where the takeaway is. Us older guys have a little bit, much more of the practical experience. You can have all the models in the world, and sometimes these youngins forget to look out the window, which is equally important. All right, folks, I think a 42-minute weather live stream is pretty long, and we've covered a lot of angles here and details. So we will keep you updated on everything going on this weekend, of course. And as I said, I'll try and do some live streams this weekend. Sunday, it might be a little bit dicey because of the fact that I'm going to be out and because of my work schedule. But you never know. I might be able to figure out a way. Tomorrow, I will definitely get on at some point during the day. The Joe and Joe Weather Show tonight, sometime after 8:30. So do join us for that. And you can check out latest website posts on meteorologistjoecioffi.com, and of course my Facebook page, where you can watch the Joe and Joe Weather Show, meteorologist Joe Cioffi, or you can watch it on Joe Rayo's page, Joe Rayo Weather. Have a great night and a great weekend. If I don't see you guys over the weekend, please be safe, and we'll see you soon on the on my show, on my YouTube channel.